Chosen one. Tonight, the gates of provision swing open in a way that feels almost impossible to explain, as if heaven itself leaned down for a moment and whispered that a season of lack is ending and a new current of abundance has begun to move. There are moments in life when something shifts quietly behind the scenes. You don't always see it with your eyes right away. Nothing outside may look dramatically different yet. The same walls, the same routine, the same streets outside your window. But deep in the unseen layers of life, something has started to turn. A door that had been sealed for a long time begins to loosen on its hinges, and suddenly the energy of opportunity, the energy of increase, begins to move again. Before we go deeper into this message, stay with this video until the very end. Something in these words may meet you exactly where you are right now. And if you feel even a small spark of hope rise in your heart while listening, I invite you to write your warmest wishes in the comments and say, Amen. There is something powerful about speaking hope out loud. When people express their hopes together, even in simple words, it feels like a ripple moving through the unseen world, like a signal sent upward that the heart is still open, still believing that blessings can arrive and that the universe can move in ways we do not yet understand. Now take a slow breath, because the idea of a portal is something many people misunderstand. They imagine some dramatic supernatural event, some glowing doorway appearing in the sky. But most of the time, these openings don't look like that. They begin quietly. A new idea suddenly enters your mind. An unexpected conversation leads to a possibility you had never considered before. A problem that once blocked your path begins to loosen. Little by little, things start aligning in ways that once seemed unlikely. The number 888 has been associated for centuries with cycles of renewal and overflow. In spiritual symbolism, it often represents the movement of divine provision. The idea that when one season ends, another begins with greater expansion. But here's the part people often overlook. Abundance isn't only about money. Real wealth begins deeper than that. It begins in the mind. It begins in the spirit. Because if the mind is trapped in fear, even opportunity can look like danger. If the heart is convinced that blessing will never come, then even when a door opens, the person may hesitate too long to walk through it. That's why transformation often begins inside long before it appears outside. The Bible hints at this kind of shift in a very simple but powerful way. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Think about that for a moment. The way you see yourself shapes the way you move through the world. If someone believes they are destined for nothing but struggle, they often unknowingly reinforce that path. They reject opportunities, distrust possibilities, and hold themselves back without even realizing it. But when a person begins to believe, truly believe, that their life can change, their perception sharpens. They notice things they once overlooked. They take steps they once avoided. They begin to cooperate with the flow of opportunity instead of resisting it. That is how portals really open. Not with explosions of light, but with awareness. Chosen one. The reason this message may feel strangely personal to you is because deep down, you may already sense that a shift has begun. Maybe you've been through a long stretch of pressure, a season where everything felt tight. Financially, emotionally, spiritually. You kept going, But there were moments when you wondered if the effort would ever lead anywhere. Moments when you questioned whether the future held anything different than the past. But something interesting happens after long seasons of endurance. The person who emerges from them is not the same as the one who entered. You become more observant, more patient, more capable of recognizing real opportunity instead of illusions. And that matters, because abundance often arrives disguised as responsibility, a new project, a partnership, a chance to step into something unfamiliar. At first, it may even look like extra work, but hidden inside, it is the seed of expansion. There is a verse that quietly echoes this principle. The blessing of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil for it. Proverbs 10:22, notice the wording carefully. It doesn't say wealth appears without effort. It says the blessing removes the painful struggle that once surrounded it. When someone is aligned with the path meant for them, effort still exists, but it begins to feel purposeful rather than exhausting. Doors open that previously remained closed. People appear at the right moment. Resources begin to circulate more freely, and the person starts realizing that the long preparation season was never wasted. It was training. Training the mind to remain steady. Training the heart to remain grateful even in uncertainty. Training the spirit to recognize when the time to step forward has finally arrived. Chosen one, wealth, in the truest sense, is the expansion of life. It includes provision, yes, but it also includes clarity, peace, purpose. Because money without peace eventually becomes another form of poverty. But when peace and wisdom guide abundance, something powerful happens. Resources become tools, tools to build, tools to support others, tools to create stability not just for yourself, but for those connected to your life. That is the deeper purpose behind abundance. And this is why spiritual traditions have always warned against seeing wealth only as personal gain. True prosperity flows. It moves, it circulates like water. A river that stops moving eventually becomes stagnant, but a river that flows nourishes everything along its path. In the same way, abundance that flows through a person multiplies. There is another verse that captures this beautifully. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Luke 6:38, running over. That image matters. It suggests overflow, not barely enough, not survival, overflow. But overflow doesn't arrive in a life that is completely closed. It arrives in a life that understands the rhythm of receiving and releasing. Receiving blessings, releasing generosity, receiving wisdom, releasing encouragement, receiving opportunity, releasing effort and creativity. When that rhythm begins to move, the current of abundance strengthens, and suddenly, what once felt like locked doors start opening. One opportunity leads to another. One step reveals the next. And the person begins to see that the portal was never a mystical doorway somewhere far away. It was a moment of alignment. A moment when belief, faith, effort, and timing finally met in the same place. Chosen one. If something inside you has been stirring lately, a sense that change is approaching, don't ignore it. Pay attention. Listen to the quiet ideas that appear in your mind. Notice the conversations that spark possibility. Observe the doors that begin to move even slightly. Because abundance rarely shouts when it arrives. It whispers first. It tests the waters. It looks for the ones who are awake enough to recognize the moment when the tide begins to turn. And when those moments appear, the most powerful thing you can do is step forward with courage. Not reckless risk, but calm courage. The kind that says, maybe this is the beginning of something new. Maybe the long preparation season has led to this opening. Maybe the flow that once felt blocked is finally beginning to move again. And sometimes, just sometimes, the quiet shift you feel in your spirit is the first sign that the doors of provision, the ones that seemed locked for so long, have finally begun to open. There is a strange moment that happens after a door begins to open in life, not the moment of excitement at the beginning, but the quiet moment that follows it. The moment when you realize something is actually shifting and your mind almost doesn't know what to do with it yet. Because for a long time, maybe longer than you expected, you lived in a season where everything required effort, heavy effort. You had to push through resistance. You had to stay patient when results were slow. Sometimes it felt like you were planting seeds in dry ground, wondering if anything would ever grow there. But then something subtle starts to change. You notice that things are not as blocked as they once were. Conversations move more smoothly. Ideas that once felt distant begin to feel possible. Even your own thoughts about the future begin to carry a slightly different tone. Not perfect confidence. No, not that, but a quiet sense that the tide might finally be turning. Chosen one, that feeling matters more than you might realize. Because abundance rarely appears all at once. It arrives in layers, almost like the first light before sunrise. At first, you can barely tell the difference between darkness and dawn. The sky just looks a little softer, a little less heavy. Then slowly, the horizon begins to glow. The number 888 has often been connected to this stage of life, the stage where cycles begin to complete and a new rhythm begins to move forward. Not a sudden miracle that falls into your hands without preparation, but a doorway that opens after you have endured enough lessons to walk through it wisely. And wisdom changes the way a person receives abundance. Someone who has never faced difficulty may not know how to hold prosperity when it arrives. They spend quickly. They trust the wrong voices. They mistake temporary excitement for lasting opportunity. But someone who has walked through seasons of waiting, someone who has seen both loss and growth, that person holds opportunity differently. They recognize its value. They treat it with respect. They move carefully, but not fearfully. And that balance, that calm awareness, creates stability that others can't easily shake. There is a verse that quietly speaks about this transformation, and the more you think about it, the more powerful it becomes. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Luke 16:10. Sometimes people wonder why blessings seem delayed, why opportunities appear later than expected. But preparation is part of the process. The person you were 5 years ago might not have been ready for the doors opening now. The perspective you hold today, the patience you developed, the discipline you built, all of that had to form first. Think about the things you've learned recently. You learned to observe more before acting. You learned that not every loud opportunity is a good one. You learned to value your energy and your time in ways you may not have before. These lessons don't feel glamorous while you're learning them, but they are the exact tools needed to navigate seasons of expansion. Chosen one. Abundance is not just about receiving more. It's about becoming someone capable of managing more. More responsibility, more influence, more resources, more impact. And sometimes That growth inside a person takes longer than they expected. But once it happens, the shift becomes noticeable. You stop chasing everything. You start recognizing what truly aligns. You stop reacting impulsively. You begin responding with clarity, and that clarity becomes a compass. The Bible contains another verse that speaks quietly about the kind of stability that emerges when someone walks with faith rather than fear. The Lord will open the heavens, the storehouse of his bounty. Deuteronomy 28:12, the storehouse. Think about that image. A place where provision is kept until the right moment arrives. A place where resources are not randomly scattered, but carefully held until the time is right for them to be released. In many ways, life works like that. There are seasons of storing, seasons of preparing, and then seasons of release. Chosen one, you may be entering a season where what was once stored begins to move. Opportunities you once hoped for may begin to appear in unexpected ways. Connections that once seemed impossible may suddenly become real conversations. Ideas that lived quietly in your mind may finally find the environment where they can grow. But there is something important to remember when doors begin opening. Stay grounded. Excitement is natural. Gratitude is beautiful. But grounding yourself keeps the momentum steady. Abundance grows best in calm soil, not in frantic energy. That means continuing the habits that strengthened you during quieter seasons. Continue thinking carefully before major decisions. Continue surrounding yourself with people who bring wisdom rather than confusion. Continue listening to that quiet, internal guidance that helped you through the harder chapters. Because prosperity without awareness can slip away as quickly as it arrives. But prosperity guided by wisdom, that kind of wealth multiplies, it builds, it expands in ways that continue long into the future. There is another passage that captures this beautifully. You will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion. 2 Corinthians 9:11, enriched in every way. Not just financially, emotionally, spiritually, relationally. True prosperity is never one-dimensional. It strengthens the whole life. Your mind becomes clearer. Your decisions become wiser. Your generosity becomes deeper. And your sense of purpose becomes more defined. Chosen one. This is why the moment of opening, the moment when the portal of opportunity begins to move, should not be rushed through carelessly. Pause long enough to recognize it. Pause long enough to feel gratitude for how far you've already come. Because the road behind you shaped the person standing here now. The long nights of thinking, the quiet prayers, the moments when you kept moving, even when progress was invisible. All of that built the foundation that allows you to stand steady now. And steady people are the ones who can truly hold abundance when it arrives. So if you feel that quiet shift happening in your life lately, if there is a sense that something is beginning to move forward after a long season of stillness, don't dismiss it. Sometimes the first sign of a new chapter isn't loud at all. It's just a calm realization, a small moment where you feel it deep in your chest. Something is changing. The current that once felt stuck is beginning to flow again. And when that flow begins, it rarely stops at just one blessing. It starts with one door, then another, until one day you look around and realize the path that once felt closed has quietly become wide open in front of you. There is a quiet moment that often arrives after a long season of struggle, and it's easy to miss if you're not paying attention. It doesn't come with fireworks or loud announcements. It feels more like a soft shift in the air, like when the wind changes direction before the weather turns. You may wake up one morning and realize that the heaviness you carried for so long is not sitting on your shoulders in the same way anymore. The problems may not have vanished completely, but something inside you has changed, and that change is the beginning of everything. Chosen one. When people talk about doors of wealth opening, many imagine sudden riches falling from the sky, but the deeper truth is more grounded than that. Wealth often begins with a change in perspective, a moment where you start seeing life differently than before. The same world that once looked full of obstacles begins to reveal possibilities. The same road that once felt narrow starts showing small paths branching outward. And once you see those paths, you realize they were there all along. You just weren't ready to notice them yet. Preparation changes vision. When your mind grows stronger, your spirit steadier, your patience deeper, the way you interpret life transforms. A closed door no longer feels like the end of everything. It becomes information, a redirection, a signal, guiding you towards something better aligned with who you've become. And that's something people rarely talk about when they speak of abundance. Abundance requires alignment. If someone receives wealth while still carrying confusion, fear, or constant comparison, that wealth can disappear as quickly as it arrived. But when abundance arrives after a person has developed wisdom, humility, and patience, it becomes stable. It becomes something that can grow and bless more than just one life. The Bible speaks to this kind of quiet growth in a way that feels incredibly simple but carries deep meaning. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. Proverbs 21:5. Notice the word diligent. Not rushed, not reckless. Diligent. Step-by-step effort. Thoughtful movement. A willingness to keep building even when results appear slowly at first. Chosen one. You may not realize it fully yet, but the seasons of waiting you went through were shaping exactly this quality inside you. They were teaching you how to continue even when recognition was absent, how to keep believing in the growth when circumstances looked still, how to hold faith when the evidence hadn't arrived yet. Those lessons are not wasted. In fact, they are the very foundation that allows new blessings to stay when they arrive, because wealth that lands on unstable ground often disappears. But wealth that grows from disciplined soil, that kind of prosperity expands. It multiplies quietly, steadily, almost like a tree growing roots beneath the surface before its branches stretch toward the sky. There's another verse that carries a calm but powerful message about provision. And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:19. Every need. Not necessarily every passing desire, but the things truly required for your life to move forward with strength and purpose. Sometimes people misunderstand this promise and imagine that provision means an easy road. But often provision looks different. It looks like the right idea appearing at the right time, the right conversation unfolding when you least expected it, the right opportunity emerging just as your preparation reaches its peak. Those moments can feel almost mysterious when they happen. You look back and realize how many small steps had to align for that door to open. And that realization brings humility, because you begin to understand that abundance is not created by human effort alone. Effort matters, yes, But there is also timing, guidance, grace, a kind of invisible cooperation between your actions and something greater than yourself, chosen one. This is why gratitude becomes so important when prosperity begins to move into your life. Gratitude keeps the heart grounded. It reminds you where your strength came from when the path felt uncertain. It reminds you of those nights when you had to trust, even though you didn't know how things would unfold. And gratitude protects abundance from turning into arrogance. Because the moment a person believes they alone are the source of their success, they begin to lose the humility that allowed them to grow in the first place. There's a final verse that carries a beautiful reminder about how blessings are meant to move through a life rather than stop inside it. Freely you have received, freely give. Matthew 10:8. That line reveals something profound about true wealth. Real prosperity flows. It moves outward. It lifts others. It builds communities. It creates opportunities for people who once felt stuck in the same place you once stood. When abundance flows like that, it multiplies in ways that go far beyond numbers. It becomes legacy. It becomes impact. Chosen one, if you feel that quiet stirring in your life lately, don't dismiss it. Pay attention to the small shifts happening around you, the ideas forming in your mind, the chances appearing in conversations, the sense that the road ahead might be opening wider than it once seemed. Because sometimes the beginning of a new chapter doesn't announce itself loudly. It arrives like a whisper, a calm realization that the season of waiting may finally be giving way to the season of movement. And when that moment arrives, the most powerful thing you can do is move forward with steady faith, not rushing, not doubting every step, just walking with the quiet confidence that something good is unfolding. You've come too far to turn back now. The lessons behind you have already shaped the person you are today, and the path ahead, even if you can't see every detail yet, may be carrying more possibility than you once believed was waiting for you.